about how to publish on the cheap. So stay tuned.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie authors on their journey to publication. My name is Jamie Hirschberger, and I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Catane, and I write Christian dystopian fantasy.
Welcome to everyone who is watching live. We love our live chat, just so full of enthusiastic support for one another. We've already got Piper and Shell. Piper says hello. Shell says hiya. Gigi's giving us the big wave. Liz says hello. And Barbara, hello, ladies. Hello to you. And if you're listening to us later on any of the many formats where we make the podcast available, we also appreciate you and encourage everybody to like and review and promote and everything else so that we can reach even more people with the encouragement and support that we offer here. So we like to start every episode of the show with what we call What's Up. It's where we check in with each other and find out what's going on, what's new since the last time we were all able to get together. And what's up with you, Jen?
I am leaving in just a little bit here, as soon as we're done with the podcast, basically. My son is receiving his master's degree tomorrow from Olivet Nazarene University. So I was just telling Tina before we got on here that like before it was like chaos to go somewhere because I had to get everyone ready, right? Like I had to get all the kids' stuff ready. And now my kids are like old enough, they take care of themselves. Like I just let them pack and like generally they do good. I probably should check, but I don't. Like if they forget something, I'm sure we can take care of it. They can wear the same clothes twice if they need to. Life goes on, right? But the problem now is like we have so many pets. We have so many animals here that I have to like get ready to go, but then get the house ready for the dog sitter, the pet sitter. So that's what it's kind of crazy right now. Everyone's upstairs actually trying to get like some laundry done and things. But so that's what's going on here is lots of chaos and stuff. So
oh, how wonderful. These events in life are just a really great reason to celebrate family and to be together. How amazing for you. Congratulations.
Thanks. And he's such a good kid. Like I'm just so excited for him. And then, he got married last year. So he and his wife are like super excited for us to come down. I hope they're super excited. We're super excited to see them. So
is it still kind of weird to say he and his wife?
It is.
Yeah.
100%. Because I don't know if you are friends with me, if anyone's friends with me on Facebook, I shared a memory and it was little Spencer on the floor with his sisters who are babies. I mean, oh gosh, with the chubby cheeks. And like Chloe was literally 2 years old at this point in this picture. And they're riding him like a horse and he's laughing. And I'm like, that's how he is. Like, that's him. He is not old enough to be married. He is like a 9-year-old right now. Like, how in the world is this possible? But he's married and he's getting his master's degree and I couldn't be more proud. So.
Well, that's great. Piper says, congrats, Jen.
Oh,
Liz says her what's up is she got her manuscript back from her editor yesterday. How exciting.
Yay.
And she finished the 3 Love and Lansing books written by our own Jennifer.
Aww. I hope you enjoyed them, Liz. Again, yes, I don't read these. I just click them. Like, so when you see me surprised, that's a genuine, like, that's my genuine reaction. I'm thank you for reading them and I hope you enjoyed them.
We have Rhonda in the chat. Hi,
Rhonda! Yay! We miss you, Rhonda.
Yeah, that's what Gigi says too. She's so happy to see her in the chat.
We miss you.
Yes. And Barbara says, woo woo, have a great trip, Jen.
Thank you. And we're taking my husband's little car because I save on gas. So my daughters are not, it's going to be crammed. So be praying for us.
These are the things that build character. Tell them that.
This is a road trip. Yep.
And then Piper's what's up? She's going through newsletter chaos at the moment. She has medical appointments and trying to get her work done in her work in progress. Busy. Yeah. And Barbara says, hey, Rhonda, we are down a host. Rhonda is joining us in the chat only. We might take some time to discuss why at a different moment in time. But for right now, what's up with you, Miss Tina?
Well, I had a frustrating week, but I made it through it. So what happened was last year, it was about this time last year, I finished my rough draft of book 2 and I sent it off to be read by my editor. And she was just doing a read through. And so I took like a month to work on book 3. And I was saving all that into Dropbox.
Mm-hmm.
But then my computer died.
Oh,
Completely dead. And I got a brand new computer, and it was I had a Windows laptop and I switched to a Mac. So Monday, I had to re-download Scrivener because I had to get the Mac version. And when I went to download what I had done for book 3, it wouldn't download. Scrivener wouldn't open it because it said there were files missing.
oh,
So I
Oh.
tried 100 different ways to try to get that to work. They said to look for the binder files. I found the binder files, but they wouldn't open it. So what I spent the next 2 days, and I don't know how many hours I spent going through each and every file in my Dropbox, finding the original file, downloading it to my computer as a content.rtf, renaming it, and uploading it into Scrivener in the proper spot.
And did it work?
Yeah, I got everything back.
Oh.
but
yay! Happy
it was
ending.
a lot of work, but it wasn't gone. So
Yeah, praise God.
yeah, but so I was frustrated in the middle of it, but it's done now. And so now spend some time reading what I wrote and letting it marinate in my intellection brain and hopefully get to work on Monday.
That's great. And
That is
I did not mean to put myself last. But I just came to the podcast today with a different what's up in mind. But then I was inspired by a chat from some fellow authors that was going on about the subject that we've never discussed before. And so I just thought I would get your ladies' take live on the air. I'm just going to say a word and then I would like you guys to just react. And that word is cilantro. Do you have an opinion one way or another about this fabulous herb, Jennifer? Like, does it taste like soap to you? Are
it
you
does
one of
not.
those people?
No, it does not taste like soap to me, but you can overdo it. People that love cilantro usually overdo it when they're cooking for the rest of us. I like it, but it's one of those things that it's from the parsley family, and parsley is generally very like kind of a mild kind of an herb, but it's like a strong one. So I think that a little bit goes a long way. Definitely, I only use it in Mexican food. I don't like it in other things, but in pico's not right unless you have some cilantro. That's my
And
take.
Tina, what is your opinion on this controversial herb? We've got Piper in the chat saying it is disgusting.
So did Rhonda. Look at Rhonda really hating it. Ew.
I like cilantro, but my husband is one of the people on this planet who has a gene. There's actually a gene people have that makes cilantro taste like soap to them.
Really? It's not just in their head.
It's not just in their head. It's actually a gene. And he has it. And so I always substitute Italian parsley for cilantro. And it's not quite the same, but it makes him happy. So
But it's close, and it would be close enough.
Yeah.
Even in pico, it would be close enough, I think.
But then if we go to a Mexican restaurant, he's like questioning the waitress. Is there cilantro in this? Is there cilantro in this? So, yeah.
What's interesting for me personally is that it turns out it was an acquired taste in my book only because I went to Cancun with my sister for her senior year spring break and it was in everything. We could not escape it. And we were just like, this flavor. And we realized that it was the cilantro and we're just like, but then it seemed like the next time I had it, it didn't offend me. And then the next time I didn't have it and felt like I should, I missed it. And so the next thing you know, it's like, I really like it if I'm eating, like you said, pico or even some guacamole. It's very much a excellent flavor enhancer in my book. And I think it's so fun that something like that can just be so divisive. So I just
really
want to see. And besides, some people say cilantro and not cilantro. So there you go.
Cilantro. It sounds like something the people in Michigan would say, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone here say that. But we always put an in everything, right? Like
You
cat
go a little bit
and
further north, and they
blank.
put an A and everything. So
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Canada,
true.
eh?
Oh, yeah. Or the
BB
UP. Yeah.
BB seems to have Rhonda's opinion on the
Well, it
cilantro.
is
Yes.
genetic, so that maybe they both
Yes.
have share the gene.
Shell
I-
says, yum. She likes chopped cilantro and onion as a taco topping. I'm getting hungry now.
Oh, Jones shared her what's up. Let's go back to that.
Hi, Joan here. What's up? My second contemporary Christian romance novel releases in 2 weeks. Woo! That's so
Yay.
great. And she says she's been working hard behind the scenes to get everything ready for release. It's exciting and scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We all know that feeling.
Wow, that's
Can I
amazing.
share a real quick recipe hack? So we love guac here in the Tong house. There's only one child in our family that doesn't like it, and she's nuts anyway, so we'll just ignore her. But it's like when you go out to eat, it's like they give you like this little itty bitty like tablespoon of it for like $5. It's ridiculous how much they charge. And my daughter-in-law came home. My other daughter-in-law was visiting us, my oldest stepson's wife, and she made homemade guac. And I watched her, and I'm like, that's just a lot of work. But then I watched what she was putting into it, and I realized guacamole really is just avocado and pico mixed together. Add some lime juice and some salt, and you got it. So if you're ever like hungry for pico or you got a party to go to, it really literally is just avocado. Buy the pre-made pico because it's pretty fresh. Like they make it usually in the grocery stores and stock it, and you just like smash it all together and you got guac. So recipes with Jen. You're welcome.
I have so much more to say on this subject.
Or you could just put it all on the same like sandwich or wrap or whatever, and not have to even mix it.
That's true.
Yes.
You still have those flavors.
Well, our topic is quite meaty today, and so I feel like we should probably transition away. As much as we love to talk about food, and then we all leave here just starving, we should start to talk about self-publishing on the cheap, pinching, publishing pennies. That's our topic for today's episode.
Say that 10 times fast.
I know, right? And we are going to be talking about ways that you can save money during the process and places where you might want to spend some of your budget, because it's an unfortunate fact that you're not going to be able to do it for 100% free. I mean, if you want to count that you've got to plug in to the internet and you've got an internet bill to pay, if you're going to go to the library, you're going to spend gas in your gas tank. Like you're going to spend money some way, somehow to get a book published.
Right. We didn't call this episode How to Publish for Free. Like that just, you cannot do that.
Yeah.
So, right.
So I personally am always team as close to free as possible, because being someone who was in charge of a marital budget that I was not contributing to, I was always very mindful of how I was spending money, and had no idea that coming to the world of publishing, there would be expenses to incur. And so we're going to all share with you all today our best tips and tricks and practices. So let's start with the actual process of writing your story. Where are some ways to save money during the actual writing process, and where are some places you might want to spend?
Well, we could start. I'm going to start with what I use, and it does cost money, and I use Scrivener. I know not everybody likes Scrivener. It doesn't work for some people just because of the way that it's the software works, but it may not work with the way that you write or the way that you organize. It works for me, but Scrivener is I think a fairly inexpensive software. You only have to pay for it one time. You get all the updates when they update, and the full price cost of it is $49. However, if you participate in any nano and you win any nano, they always give you a half off coupon. There's often places that will do giveaways for it. It's just, I think it's a good investment. So my vote is for Scrivener. What about you, Tina? What do you do?
I have Scrivener, and I like Scrivener for organizing my manuscript and my scene cards. I actually do my writing in Google Docs now.
And that's free.
Because I lost things too many times. And I like the fact that my computer could shut down on it without a warning, and it's saved.
Now, I will say that I have my Scrivener backed up to Dropbox, but you've had problems with that yourself too. So you're Just
Yeah.
Google Docs all the way. Yep.
So I write in Google Docs and then I copy and paste it into Scrivener when I'm done writing it, so that it's organized where I want it to be, and I can still do all the magic of moving things around and all that and see what I have and see my scene cards and stuff. But I do the actual writing in Google Docs, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
All
But I
right.
don't see why you couldn't organize it in Google Docs by using folders and files. And
You
stuff like
absolutely
that.
could, I think.
You could. Now, here's the issue. There's absolutely a learning curve. And so sometimes, like Piper says, she uses Microsoft Word. And some people might say, oh my goodness, but the price. But what you have to figure is if you already know how to use Microsoft Word, time is money. If you don't know how to use some of these other programs and you do not wish to invest the time to become proficient enough at them to make them work for you, that is something you should take into consideration, because cheap does not always mean best, especially if we're talking about your mental health, your frustration, and things like that.
Agreed.
Piper says a lot of editors want a Word doc to edit on. Well, all of us would sit here and say there is a way to get your manuscript into Word doc format that your editor could easily work with. But what does that trigger? Well, then I would have to learn that. So then it's up to you to decide if it's a small enough learning curve for you to go ahead and accommodate for the amount of money you're saving buying Word. And there is an alternative to Word out there called LibreOffice that I used to use when I didn't have a copy of Word and I didn't want to spend money on it. Libre. It is an office suite that is supposed to be very comparable to Microsoft Word. And when I did use the word processing Libra, it did work just like Microsoft Office does. And so there's an alternative for you if you wish to save money but are still a Word girl.
Right. And I think that's a good point to make, that like all the softwares that we're talking about, they all will convert to Word, but you don't have to have Word. Like I do have Word because we use it for homeschooling and stuff too. But Scrivener, you can take all of your document and it'll convert it to a Word doc so that someone else can open up Word, whether you own Word or not. Google Docs, the same thing. So yeah, that's a really good point to make.
And also, a lot of people already have Word, like because
Yeah.
they're students or it came with their computer. So if you already have Word, then using Word would not be an investment. Also, you don't have to buy like the $150 disc. There is a monthly subscription to Office 365, which gives you all the Office products for like $15 a month. So that's
So you-
also an option.
So yeah, you could try it out and see if you want to invest in it. Yeah.
Right.
So before we move on, just real quick, yes or no, without a whole lot of, because we got a lot of meat today, would you say that the writing process and all of that is a place where you should consider spending a bunch of your budget? I would say no. I would say
No.
find the cheapest place possible, cheapest way
Correct.
possible. Would you agree, Tina?
Yeah, the only thing that I would spend money on that falls under writing would be writing courses or classes or some kind of book to help you with the process of writing.
All right.
Okay, so now we move on to editing. Editing, have you guys ever just kind of priced out editing? I mean, so I think I'm being really generous that, you could find an editor for a half a cent a word. For a 50,000 word manuscript, that's $2,500. And a half a cent a word is pretty much a rate that you should expect to pay for someone who is a bargain editor. So
for a developmental
$2,500.
editor, it's cheaper for a copy editor, which are things you should do too, right? But go
yes.
ahead, yep.
So your first out the chute, $2,500. Ladies, what are we going to do about this dilemma?
Okay, so first of all, here's the thing that we have. Maybe I should have said this earlier, is that should you have a really good editor? Should you have a really good, all these things were mentioned? Yes. But if it's stopping you from publishing, then this is why we're doing this on the cheap, right? And guess what? Because you're independently published, you can go back in and you can put a new cover in, right? You can get it re-edited later once you're making some money if you feel like you need to. But so I want people to not freak out when we tell you like, this is how much you have to spend. We're trying to give you ways to get to the point where you can get your book published, and then you can always go back and improve it, right? I've already done that with some things. I've already tweaked some things on mine. So sorry.
Yes, and I get so clenchy and uptight when I see social media do I really have to pay for an editor? And so many people will stridently barge into the virtual room and say, absolutely, do not even consider publishing a work unless you've had it professionally edited. And I'll just be like, well, I done did it 4 times.
Right.
So, sorry that I offended you. I don't know.
Right. But you do need to have it edited. I don't think there's anyone out there in the world that is. And if you feel like, I don't need to have it edited, I know what I'm doing. I'm an editor, so I don't need to. I'm sorry. Then you need to take a step back and pray about it, because I'm telling you, everybody needs to have it edited. So how do you do that on the cheap? Well, what I do is I trade out the work. I have someone who edits for me, and I've done some graphic work for them. So try to figure out a skill that you have that other people may need, or maybe just don't want to deal with, and you could trade out the work for that.
Yeah, I agree. The barter system is amazing. And this is a little bit tricky for writers. I mean, aren't we all introverts? Isn't that why we picked writing as our... So I would encourage you to go back and watch some of our episodes about finding a good writing group and how you network as a writer. A good way to start is to reach out into our chat here and start to make some writerly friends, get your toe in the water of starting to reach out and meet with other people who will actually care about your plot and care about your characters, because the people who are the non-writers in your life might be tolerating all of your talk about your book. But I tell you, there's nothing like finding someone who will sit and listen to you through all of the things that you're trying to work out versus plotting characters and all of that.
Right. So Piper says, well, Jen, there are ... We've all seen those books. LOL. I agree. But if you're here trying to improve your craft, if you're here trying to improve your marketing, if you're here right now, you're not going to be one of those books, because you're going to want to put out the best product. Right. So what we're saying is that no matter how hard you try, your first product is not going to be perfect.
No,
it's just not.
Yeah. Perfection is paralyzing, right?
Right. But guess what? You can always go back and fix things. So that was my point. But yes, we don't want you putting out garbage. You need to get an editor, but you don't have to pay that lots of money. Now, Liz says, I just spent $1,000 Canadian on my copy editor. She said it was the cleanest manuscript she's seen. So maybe I wasted money. I don't know. I'm not going to say you wasted your money. I don't know how much. I mean, the Canadian, I'm trying to think of what that is in dollars. I think that's probably about average if you're paying a professional for a copy edit. But maybe the next one, you would try to go through what the things that we're going to talk about here to save money. So we'll see.
Yeah. I like this tip of kind of treating it like, you're getting your haircut and you're looking for a beauty school graduate. If you look for a new editor who's looking to get reviews, maybe you can get the price down a little, or you'll just pay a little bit less. Tina, I know you use Pro Writing Aid.
I did. And here's the thing. I don't know what's up with Pro Writing Aid. But I feel like when I went through Pro Writing Aid, everywhere I'd put a comma, it wanted me to take it out. And everywhere I didn't put a comma, it wanted me to put one in.
So do you think it's Pro Writing Aid?
So I did that. So then I sent it to my copy editor, and I feel like I spent a lot of time taking out and putting in commas. And so I'm wondering, is it Pro Writing Aid?
So, I mean, I think it's a cautionary tale of if you do use one of these AI situations, you probably still want to have a person actually look at it. And if you can't afford a professional editor, reach out to somebody in your sphere who you would trust to send an email to a lawyer on your behalf, and at least have them tell you if you've got your commas in the right place. Everybody knows a grammar police kind of a person that they can reach out to and do the grammar police job on their writing, and think outside the box. Maybe you could clean out and organize their garage for them, or maybe you could dog sit their hamster, or dog sit their cat for them. Yeah, just kind of barter, at least getting a once over, right? Because you want to do the best you can afford. What about having What?
So
Go ahead, Jen.
we're lumping all editing into, because we have a lot of meat in this
Yes.
episode. We're putting all kinds of editing into one thing here.
Yes.
But like there is copy editing, and then there's developmental editing. And so one of the things I think that you need to think about is the copy editing. Pro Writing 8 is more for copy editing, commas and usage and things like that. But you like to have someone look at your story and say, this doesn't work, or look at your story and say, this person had blue eyes here, they have green eyes later. So like an editor picks
Or
up
what
that kind of
happened to
stuff
that
too.
group of people you sent out to go search for something and then they never showed
They
up
never
again?
show back up in the story.
Your true story.
So beta readers is another thing I have heard. I've not used them yet, but I'm looking at possibly doing that in the future. Beta readers are something that a lot of authors use, especially authors that put out books a month or several books a year. They have a team of beta readers that they go through, and they're looking for that kind of stuff. They are avid readers. They love your style. They love your genre, and they know the genre, and they will give you feedback for that kind of stuff. And then, so then that can be a way of doing it that would help save you money. Is it as great as having an editor? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But again, we're publishing on the cheap. You can always go back and fix it later, right?
I just
So-
sent out my
Absolutely.
book to advanced readers, and I wasn't even asking for that kind of feedback. And I've gotten a couple of emails about like put two words of the same word in one sentence.
Mhm.
Mm.
And so like I got two different emails from two different people about that one sentence.
That
Yeah.
brings up another good topic, though. You can find a copy editor within your fan base. If you get somebody that catches that kind of stuff, don't be offended. Be super
Mhm.
excited and say,
I
hey,
thanked them profusely, and I was like,
yes,
thank you so much. Like sometimes, your brain sees what it thinks should be there, especially if you wrote it. You could be the best editor on the planet, but if you think it's supposed to say the dog jumped over the moon and it says the cow jumped over the moon, you're going to see the dog jumped over the moon because
right.
that's what your brain thinks is supposed to be there.
So take note of that person for the next time you have a book come out. And when it's time for copy editing, you reach out to them, and they will not only jump at the chance, I almost guarantee it, they will be super happy to do that because they're a fan and they want to see your books be great too.
Yeah. I want to just throw out one last option. How about finding an editor on like Fiverr? What do you guys think about that process or that option?
Do your research. I think it's a possibility. I think that there are some good people on Fiverr. We're going to talk about them a little bit later with cover design. But I think that you have to do your research, check all the reviews, but it's possible that
And
you could find someone.
there's different rankings too on Fiverr, so you can tell if someone's like a little higher in the ranks, they've done it more often, and they're more likely to have more reviews, and so then you're more likely to be able to tell what kind of quality you might get. And also, you can you can give them like a 1,000-word excerpt and ask them to edit it and see like if you like their work.
Excellent. All right. So, just real quick, ladies. So, is editing somewhere you would invest your writing budget, or would you work real hard to find it on the cheap?
On the cheap now. In the future, I'll pay for it. I think it's very important. I think it's important enough that when I'm making more money, I will invest more money into it. But right now, I think you can find ways creatively to get your editing done.
I'll just say what she said. What do you say, Tina?
I'd say spend what you have to,
There you go.
but try to keep it as low as you can when you're first starting out. Otherwise, it's just not cost effective until you're selling more books.
True.
Okay. Now we're moving on to another big place where people spend money, and that
Jen's so
is
excited. She's like,
I am.
"Peppermint."
I have because I have new information, which maybe
Oh,
not.
awesome.
Maybe it's not new to anyone else but me. But for the first time this week, after we did our outline, so I went back in and I put it in there. I found out about a website called getcoverscom. It was
That's
in.
right.
It is.
We're
Oh, so
talking
you
about
know of them?
covers.
Yeah. So, it's another group that I'm in. It's actually a course that I'm in, which has nothing to do with this topic, but so a bunch of authors that I now know use it. So it's been vetted. I went to the website. They look like they're really good options. They have options as low as $10 for just an ebook cover with one image. Then it goes up from there. And for $35, you get not only an ebook, you get your print cover, and you get the 3 images. And I'm like, I can't, like, my time is worth so much money. Like, I might give this this a try for my next series and see what they can do for me for $35 per cover. And they'll send you the pieces of it too, is what it looked like in the thing. So never tried it, but I know a lot of people that have tried it. It's been vetted, and I think it's worth a shot for $35 for a book cover.
I'd be curious to see if they have anything that's would fit for a Christian fantasy book, because
These aren't pre-mades. These are not pre-mades.
Oh, they're not. See, because I've looked at some of those pre-mades, and it's like, if you look at the fantasy covers, they are not appropriate for Christian fantasy, most of them.
So we don't have time to sit here and talk about just this website, but I'm excited about this website. And
let me just tell you, remember the S, because if you do get cover, it's about travel insurance. So get covers. Ask me how I know. Yes. So anyway, that's really neat, Jen. What a good lead, because covers is someplace you can really spend a lot of money, right? Yes. I mean, there are people who spend tons and tons of money to get a cover, because it is so important. And every writing advice that you see everywhere will be like, do not DIY this. If you're not someone who has an eye for graphic design, if you're not someone like whatever, but you would say DIY is fine if what, ladies? Yes. Because you both have done DIY.
I took a class. I already had a background in Photoshop. I learned in college. It was part of my degree. But I took a class not on Photoshop, but on book covers, and I did a ton of research. So again, that's more money. That's definitely more than $35. I spent the money on, but I've already earned the money back because I've done 3 covers, working on the 4th. So what it would have cost me for a professional, well, not including get covers, but what it would have cost me for a professional to do it, I have more than made my money back from that class. And then you have to buy images. I'm sorry, Tina. I just want to make sure people know that you can't just copy your images off the internet. You have to buy images from reputable sources like Shutterstock, Deposit Photos, which they have a deal a couple times a year where you can get a ton of pictures like for $100. And so, yeah. Go ahead, Tina.
I took the same class. I didn't have a background in Photoshop or design, but I did have a background in art and drawing. So I had like an artistic eye. And I took that same class, and I also purchased my images off of Shutterstock. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty happy with my covers. I've gotten compliments on how nice my covers look. So
yeah, if you want to DIY, just make sure that you fully research. But I'm telling you what, for $35, so you should, if you go to that Get Covers, I would say if you can't do as good as those, you might want to spend the $35, because again, learning how to use a photo editing program, ask me how I know what a nightmare it is to be starting from someone who doesn't even know how to manipulate a layer to figure out how to make something that is passable as a book cover. And if you can exchange all of those hours for $35 and have someone else take on all of that worry, I would totally say that is worth it. But not everybody can find a cover they like for $35. And so, you've got to do your research and ask around for how other people handle this issue. And again, you can barter it, just like you can barter the editing or any of these other things we're talking about. Right. The only thing you can't really barter out is actually writing the book.
Exactly. That's why you don't want to spend too much money or time on these. Well, you can, but yeah, we're not going there. So the other last couple options are, we talked about Fiverr earlier. Fiverr, you can get book covers on a Fiverr. They're going to be about the same price as Get Covers, but again, do your research. Look at their their reviews and just make sure that they are a legit and that they're going to do a good job for you. But you can do them for about the same price as what Get Covers has. And then pre-mades. There's lots of websites that have pre-mades, and some of them are absolutely beautiful. They vary in price. I'm noticing that pre-mades are getting more expensive than these Fiverr and Get Covers options, though, which is kind of like strange, because before, back in the day, they were $20 to $35. Basically, they were like people that did book covers and did options for people, then they were the leftovers that nobody wanted. So they just kind of sold them for whatever. But and then Liz said, I've bought pre-mades. and then not use them. And people are like, yeah, that's my fear. Like, yeah. So that's a thing too. Like I've seen pre-mades that I thought, oh, and then it's given me an idea for a story. I got so excited. I almost bought them, and I'm glad because I don't have time for other stories right now.
Yes.
Right.
And this is where your business plan comes in. Your business plan should be reining you in as to whether or not you should be spending money on a cover for which you have no book or whatever. So just saying, you should always be mindful of the overall budget that you have to spend on your project and where all of that money is going to go. So, I guess we can kind of move on about covers, except for let's get our final answer. My final answer is the best you can afford. That's my final answer.
Agreed.
Okay.
And be honest with yourself. Like I've seen so many people share their book covers and want feedback, and they don't like the feedback they're getting. If you're not a professional, you probably can't see it the right way. So just be honest with yourself about what your skill level is.
And if you can't be honest with yourself, find somebody who will be honest with you that you trust.
Agreed.
And have them look at it.
All righty. So we are moving on to formatting. What is that? If you are brand new, you might not even understand what we're talking about. And I will tell you, you cannot just take your Microsoft Word document and like kind of push print and have it show up okay on everybody's e-reader. There is a specific way the layout and everything needs to be for it to work in a digital space and a digital environment, and also to be printed from a press. Correct, ladies? Am I describing what formatting is? And so you got to make sure the margins are right. You've got to make sure if you want a little flower at the beginning of every chapter, or you want there to be like a quote and then there's some space and then your prose starts. All of that is encapsulated in the formatting. And you can pay to have the formatting done, or you can do the formatting yourself. So why don't you ladies speak to that a little bit?
Full disclosure, this is where I would spend money, because I did spend money here, because I struggled at first with some of the online offerings, which have improved. I will be honest. They've improved since I started off with publishing, and it was worth it to me to spend the money. And I bought Scrivener. No, I'm sorry. I bought Vellum. Yes, we were talking about Scrivener. Vellum is a Mac-based software that helps you format, and it's just easy. You upload your Word doc. I take my Scrivener doc, I make it a Word doc. You upload the Word doc to the software, and it makes it into these beautiful chapters. It'll make an ebook format and a print format for you. It just makes life easy. It's about $300, or it was when I bought it, and I've already earned that back from having, if I were going to pay someone else to do it, because again, I'm book 4 right now. So for me, full disclosure, this is where I spent the money, because like Jamie mentioned earlier, for me, time is money, and I didn't have time to mess around making it look good with all these other options. So that's where I chose.
Yes. And I will say I've heard some rustlings in the breeze or whatever about Atticus, which is supposed to be a competitor that just was released that is about $100 less than the Vellum, and it does work on a PC. So that is an option for people to explore. If anybody has used Atticus, I'd love to hear from you, because I have not. My journey to publication, I was not going to spend money on formatting, because I was writing stuff where I don't write what Jen writes. And so my requirements for what I wanted my formatting to look like, I felt like I could do fine with just a generic look, whatever. Right. And I hunted around, and I don't even know what I did. It's been way too long, and it wasn't anything I really retained. I know I had Caliber on my computer, so I did use Caliber, but I think for the last couple of things I did, I just went to Draft to Digital and used their formatter as I uploaded my ebook to their situation. Now, my recent projects have not been available in print, so I couldn't speak to that process so much. Reedsy is another option that I did explore. And again, I can't remember where I actually ended up downloading the final files from, but those are two options for people who are looking to get formatting done in a DIY manner without spending the money on a program. But I would look at Atticus only because I don't already have a Mac, and but I do see it's worth the investment, because $250 really isn't a lot if you're going to publish more than one book. I'm not so sure I would say for sure spend your money here the way that I would about a cover, but I don't think it's an exorbitant expense to have it just be easy.
Right. I agree. Cause like, again, get the time that you would spend struggling then to do this could be put into writing the next book. Now, again, Readsy and Direct to Digital, they have really upped their game with their online formatting software, and it's free. So go ahead and give that a try first. Honestly, I think that's where I started, and I struggled because my book was longer. It was, and there were things I wanted to do that it was not doing. And so, like, again, I think they've improved the things that I wanted.
Yeah, but Vellum will give you all the bells and whistles that you
so
want for
easy.
sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so easy.
So I have Vellum because I ended up getting a Mac, but I also have Atticus because before I had the Mac, I got it like when it was coming right out the gate, and I got a huge discount because it was still like an introductory offer or something. So I actually have both of those. And also Scrivener will format your book for you also. That's another one
Yes.
that we haven't mentioned.
They don't do a great job, but they will. If
I
you're
haven't
you've
heard
already
a lot of great things about it, but it's a possibility.
if you've already purchased Scrivener, give Scrivener a try for their formatting for sure. Piper says that she follows a tutorial for formatting in Word. Seriously, Google and YouTube will be your best friend in this situation. See what other people are doing. There's lots of tutorials out there.
Yes, because you really can save money here. You really can. There is a elbow grease and sweat equity involved, but here's a place to save actual cold hard cash. Skip your binge watching of Netflix for one weekend and figure out the formatting puzzle. That's what I say.
And Piper says that she's seen some people suggest doing Vellum via a cloud app thingy when they don't have a Mac. That's what I did. That's exactly what I did. It's called Mac in Cloud. And again, Google search it. There's a YouTube video of a gentleman that shows you how to do it. It's a little cumbersome, but what I ended up doing, I bought Vellum and I did it that way for my first book and realized that I love Vellum, how easy it was. But the cumbersome part was using my PC to be a Mac. And so I ended up finding a friend of mine who knows a lot about Macs. We found a used MacBook Air, like the lightest, like cheapest MacBook that you can find. And it was old. It's like from 2012. Vellum does not take a whole lot of space on a computer. Like it doesn't need a whole lot. And it works great. I love this little, so I use it just for publishing. So that's an option too. But again, another investment, but I was already making books. I was already making some money. So you don't have to do that on the get-go. So.
Well, and so we kind of got Jen's answer. She absolutely will spend money here because she did. I say as cheap as you can do it without making yourself crazy. Tina, would you spend money on formatting or would you try to do it free?
My first book, I actually bartered with Jen, and she formatted my first book for me. The hard part about that was when I found typos, it was harder to go in and fix them without having to bug Jen. Also, if I hadn't had a surplus of money that I got for Christmas, I don't know that I would have bought Vellum and Atticus. I
the
probably
price
would have used Scrivener or tried to find out a way to do it through Word or Direct to Digital or one of those.
All right. Well,
but here's a suggestion to make your money back real quick. I know we're like trying to fit us all in, but if you do invest in Vellum or Atticus, does it mean that you couldn't make some money by offering very cheaply to format people's books for them?
There you go. If you need someone to do your cover, maybe you could do a barter situation.
Start a Fiverr thing.
I will format 5 of your books if you do a cover for me, maybe something like that, because it's going to be so easy for you.
But they don't have to know that. They don't have to know how easy it is.
We've got 2 more points. What do you guys want to do about that? Do you want to revisit this topic or do you want to I mean it's already quarter till, so how do you want to handle this here?
We could stop here because the rest of this is really about after the book is done. It's the publishing and the marketing of it. But I feel like we really need to talk about these things because this is where I see the most people freak out. And, the past episodes we've done recently about predatory publishing companies and like this is where the information is of how you would do this cheaply and not get caught up in that. So,
and I feel we can make a full episode out of those 2 points, I believe.
So here we go. Pinching, publishing, pennies, part. Is there a P word that means for 2? All I could think of is like
part due
pedal bike for 2 feet because I know that anyway, whatever. So yeah, part 2. So tune in next week and we're going to talk a little bit more about now your book is formatted and has a cover and where are places you can save money after. So we have to move on just because of time restrictions. How about that, ladies? To the feeding of the backs. It's where we give each other feedback about a piece of writing that we each created just before the show. Mine I created very early this morning because I had an obligation while the other two ladies were sprinting. And I also sprinted to entirely the wrong words. Did we end up changing what words we all sprinted to? Or did
No,
you guys...
because they were already out there in social media and everything.
So just for the record, I sprinted to entirely different words than everybody else did. So Jen, why don't you tell everybody what the real words were and then share your piece. And we only give positive feedback on these pieces because we don't edit them and we're not looking for a full-on critique. We're just looking for the yay, good jobs. And that's what you get when you share with us.
So since it's the first Friday of the month, it is First Friday Words, and this, which is my favorite prompt, by the way. And so our 5 words today is letter, peel, satellite, visit, and law. And I think I only got the first 2 words in before I got going. So we're back in Widows of the West world. You'll be happy, Rhonda. Colleen's hands shook as she peeled the envelope open. She never received correspondence. The last letter she'd received had announced the news of her father's death. With that one message, she had not only lost the last remaining member of her family, but also the last remaining hope of ever escaping Denny McGuire. Her father was the only person left in the world that would take Colleen in. Not that he would ever have been able to pay for her passage home or had any funds to pay for whatever legal fees would be associated with divorcing her husband. But Colleen knew that if her father was aware of her situation, if he knew exactly of what kind of man Denny McGuire really was, he would have done anything he could to save her. He wouldn't have been able to, she knew, but just the knowledge that he would have tried always brought comfort to her. But even that sliver of hope was dashed when she received the news of his death. I'm surprised the old coot lasted this long, Denny had said upon hearing the news. What do you mean? He was 1 foot in the grave from the day I met him, Denny chuckled. Couldn't give up the bottle like the good old Irishman he was. Colleen felt the bile bubble in the back of her throat as she fought back tears. She would cry later that night when Denny had gone back to town, back to the saloon, and the women he frequented there. She'd cry then because she'd vowed early on in their marriage to never cry in front of this man again. A breeze fluttered the curtain of the window near her, fluttering the piece of paper in her hand and bringing her back to the present. She wiped the back of her free hand across her eyes and unfolded the letter. That's it.
What does it say?
That's I don't know. That's why I stopped there. I had like a minute left. I'm like, I don't know what it says. So
that's funny. I stopped a minute too.
Yes, I did not stop at a minute, but I put a sentence in that was more finished than. That's interesting because we weren't even together. Right, so sorry to say you're mean. That's not exactly positive feedback, although it is because obviously I'm invested. So very good job once again sucking us into Colleen's world and life.
I really enjoyed finding out a little bit more about the evil ex or the evil late husband, I guess it would be. Because it gives a lot more context to her character. And you know, I'm a high context person. I have to know all the context. So I really enjoyed that.
Thanks. I appreciate it. It's one of those moments I've been trying to figure out how I was going to give information without info dumping, right? Like I wanted to be able to, and so a letter arriving, which would then like kind of react,
trigger a memory,
trigger it. Yeah. So this obviously needs a lot of work, but I like where this is going. So yeah.
Shell says it was a great way to weave in the memory.
Oh,
and
thank
Gigi
you.
said it was so good. She feels so sad for Colleen.
I know.
Yes.
Colleen's had it rough. Oh, you don't even know the half of it.
Piper says he's mean. Feel bad for her. Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, I will read my complete disaster, I guess, next, because what happened was, again, I didn't know that we had already words. Like, how dumb of me. I could have just checked the social media, but I saw nothing written in the blank, and I thought I was being helpful by producing new words. So the words I wrote to were lid, quantity, guard, bald, and parking, which I don't even know why I bothered to say, because like Jen, I think I used just a couple in the beginning and then completely they went away. But that's the point of the prompt, right? The prompt is to prompt you to start writing.
Yes, exactly. That's why I love the words, because it sometimes will trigger something as I'm trying to fit them in. So
there you go. All right, here it is. The Taurus rolled into the parking garage on bald tires. Milton looked up from his novel and squinted at the plate, even though the monitors in front of him would have given him plain view of it. He grunted. New York. Nothing good ever came out of New York as far as he was concerned. His own father was rumored to have hailed from there after all. Probably was still there living in squalor, or 6 feet under, as Milton liked to imagine him, preferring one image over the other depending on the reasons that brought the invisible man to mind. The Taurus was rusty and faded blue. The brake squealed as it slowed at the end of the first row and then swung wide. Milton was considering getting up to follow when the sound of Miss Katie's car approaching reached his ears, and he turned around to meet her with a wide-toothy grin. "Good morning, Miss Katie," he said to her when she slowed to a stop in front of the tidy little guard shack. "You want lime or raspberry today?" Milton reached for the cup of safety suckers he kept on the minuscule desk, but Katie waved him away. "Neither today, I'm afraid," she said. "I'm only working a half day. I have a procedure this afternoon, you see. Anyway, I'm to take nothing at all until after I've been through it." "Nothing serious, I hope," Milton said, setting the cup back down with a trembling hand and then clasping the member in its twin in order to steady it. Of course it wasn't his business. Of course he shouldn't be asking. But Miss Katie had never before refused one of his safety suckers, and she needn't have refused one today, he reasoned. She might have just taken it and slipped it into her little pink purse. "Nothing serious, I hope, too," she said, with an enigmatic smile. And Milton smiled back out of reflex, but he didn't feel the smile. Instead, he felt such a cocktail of emotions well up inside that he wasn't sure how to respond. "I hope," she'd said, so she wasn't sure. What was Milton's job here, he wondered? To press? To ask more questions? The milliseconds he was allowed to wonder expired as Milton sensed she was about to start easing the car forward. "Be an anchor," his conscience, what he referred to as his Jiminy Cricket voice, commanded, and Milton did not argue. "I'll hang on to a raspberry one," he said, though they both knew there were never really enough children who rolled past his booth to wipe him out of any particular variety. "See you tomorrow?" Even this seemed like an intrusion, the import of the answer seeming to grow with every uttered syllable. "I hope so," Katie said, and giving a little wave, she pulled ahead. Milton shook his head and forced his mind off Katie and back to wondering what business the Blue Taurus had in the building today.
I don't know how you do it, Jamie. How in just in one sprint, you like have a complete, the characters are all fleshed out. I can see where they are, like, and it's always something different. Like the characters that you write are not all cookie cutter. Like that you don't like each character has their own personality. Every scene is different. Like the blueberry, like just like, yes, so well done. I'm always speechless.
I
Love it.
appreciate that.
I think it comes from your affinity for short stories
Mhm.
because you have this way of like putting one particular moment under a microscope and pulling in all the details of that one microcosm of a moment.
Mm.
And so you can like from the safety sucker, which I can totally see,
Oh,
to like the car, to everything, like all those little details, and it's all just a few minutes of time.
mhm.
I
And
appreciate
it's a
that.
talent that you have, and I'm so jealous.
I really appreciate that. And for the uninitiated, a safety sucker is a sucker that doesn't have a stick. It has like a loop at the bottom, and they typically give them to little kids so that they don't fall down and like poke themselves in the back of the throat as they're running with their sucker, which you know they're going to do no matter how many times you tell them. So just for the uninitiated, and I really appreciate that. I really appreciate your awesome feedback. I love this part of the podcast. I love words of affirmation. So thank you much.
Well, there's a lot coming from the chat. Liz says, "A Taurus with bald tires, great scene setting." Agreed.
Thank you.
Piper says, "Safety sucker, some special sort of suckers he's got
Oh,
there.
yeah,
Love the
there's a double
affection investment."
meaning.
Mhm.
Okay, anyway, sorry.
Tell us so many great little details. Love the cocktail of emotions. Gigi says, "Jamie, oh wow, I love how you make me know your character so well. Invested." Rhonda says, "Yes, Tina, you're exactly right about Jamie's work." Yeah, we all
Thanks, you
agree with
guys.
that.
I appreciate it. I love this part of the day. All right. And then, Tina, what did you do with words that were not the words that I used? You want to remind
Well, it
people what
doesn't
they
really
were?
matter because I
Oh,
didn't use any of them.
all right, good.
I had every intention of using them, and then I started writing, and they were gone completely from my consciousness.
All
I had to
right.
put my bifocals on. Okay, and this is a continuation of the story I've been writing in these sprints. Nikolai had imagined this moment for a very long time. He'd spent years searching and had given up hope long ago. Somehow, in his mind, this young man that stood before him had stated the infant he remembered, sucking at his mother's breast. Suckling, sorry. Nikolai would never forget the hot, sinking sensation in his gut all those years ago. He'd gone outside to look at the night sky when someone hit him over the head. When he came to, the sky was just beginning to lighten to a dark lavender in anticipation of sunrise. The silhouette of the trees a dark purple against it. As soon as his senses returned, he ran back towards the cabin, its front door open and swinging in the wind. His wife lay unmoving on the bed, the IV dripping, oblivious to anything being amiss. The quilt he tucked under her chin lay in a heap on the floor, and he could see goosebumps on her arms and legs. The baby was nowhere to be seen. All logic left him in that moment as he lifted the quilt, shaking it as if the baby might somehow be hiding in its folds. He got down on all fours and peered under the bed and other furnishings. He opened cupboard doors, and as he stood staring at his wife's favorite coffee mug with the chip in the rim, it hit him. His son was gone. They'd taken him back, and his fate at that moment seemed worse than death to Nikolai as he recalled the plans the eugenics lab had for the babies they'd created. "Come," Nikolai said, turning to mount his horse. "I'll take you to her." The boy narrowed his eyes, studying Nikolai intently, his blade still held out in front of him. "I'm not going to harm you," Nicholas said. "You are my son. I would move heaven and earth for you, and within the limits of my abilities, I already have." Slowly the blade lowered, and the boy approached. Nikolai held out his hand, grasping his son's tightly as he helped him mount the steed. "So, my mother's still alive?" the boy asked. "Yes, if you can call it that," replied Nikolai. Then he spurred his horse, and they galloped out of the town and into the dark of the woods.
Okay, so I'm quiet because I have questions. Go, Jen.
Me too. Like, I feel like I missed something, but positives first. Like, I love the scene setting and the purpley sky with the outline of the
my
trees.
Goodness.
And
Yes.
Yes. So love all that, but like it's overshadowed by the questions that I have. Like it's probably because you're reading it to me instead of me looking at the page, right? But like the baby is gone. I thought Nikolai was by himself, and now he's talking to his son who's there with a sword.
It's a continuation of the scene I wrote 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
With the boy in the shadows and with the white hair.
Yes, and wasn't it from his perspective?
It was from the boy's perspective, and he came, and the end scene ended with him pulling out a blade and saying, "Take me to my mother."
Yes, like I remembered who that was and what was going on. But then anyway, like my questions were more about like it felt like we missed a chunk of dialogue in between, and I just wondered if it was something separate or different or kind of whatever, or if I just like, I mean, it wasn't even a critique so much as just like there's more there than like it's not enough.
Right, exactly. Like it's just a sprint, so you don't have to fill in all this stuff for us yet, but we want you to fill all this stuff in because we're invested in this story and we are excited about these characters. So yes, not meant to be a critique, just meant to be like, what? Wait, tell me more.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
Liz says, eugenics lab. Oh.
Yes, right?
And Piper says, I have goosebumps. I would move heaven and earth. I already have. Ooh,
yeah. It seems like there's a bunch of stuff in the past that needs to come forward somehow, either in a prequel or in flashbacks or dreams or something like that. Like, do you have this, like, you're just writing this only on this Friday, right? Like, this isn't something you plotted out or anything. This is like you're pantsing it.
Totally writing into the dark. And I'm not even sure all of these scenes are in chronological order as they're going to appear. Like if I write this into a book.
Right.
So I'm like just keeping it all in a file. And then when I go to write the series, I'm going to decide where it starts and where it ends and what to include and all that stuff. So I'm just getting the ideas out of my brain.
Piper says this is going to be such a good story. Gigi says, Tina, that was awesome. I thought it was a flash forward. Shell says, I felt his fear when he was shaking the blanket looking for the baby. Great descriptions. Rana says, Tina, my brain is drooling over what the next storyline could be about. It's so good.
Thanks, guys.
All right. And we are almost out of time, but before we go, we need to find out what's next. There's lots of things coming up next for everybody, except for me. I have really not a whole lot coming up next writing wise. I am doing some really intensive schoolwork right now. And so this is about the only writing stuff I'm kind of doing. So I'm happy that you all are here and keeping me creative and accountable to be creative. And so I have website certificates expiring and that kind of under the hood stuff to do, which makes me go, ugh, because it's none of the part of writing that I like, but it's really the only part of writing that I'm doing. And so that's what I'll probably be tackling with this next week. What about you, Jen?
Well, do you remember a couple weeks ago, I had lost some writing. I did some handwriting while I was at the nursing home with my mom. I found it. I'm so excited. I found it last night. So, in this coming week, I'm going to be adding that to the document and trying to finish up that chapter. Finally, it's a very difficult chapter. Like Jamie's the only one that really knows what happens within this book, the part that's difficult. And this is an accountability. Like she is finally facing up to everything with her parents, and her parents are finally learning an entire truth that they didn't know, and it just has to be handled very well, and it's just been very difficult to write. So like I know I've been like struggling in this one spot for a long time, but it's worth it. And then once I get done with this part, then it's like gonna be smooth sailing. So that's what I'm doing this next week.
Yay. And that's gonna wrap you up in plenty of time to start tackling some other project come November.
Yes, for sure.
Does this affect like a release date for this book? Like, have you thought that far ahead? Or are you going to wait until you know your edits are done?
Yeah, I haven't thought that far ahead.
I know,
first,
right?
I thought maybe I would do a Christmas in July kind of a situation, and then I don't know.
We'll see.
I'm not even worrying about that anymore. I'm just getting the books written. That's all I'm worried about.
Good job.
Yeah.
Hi, Mom. It's Phoebe. Good show. Aww.
Thanks, Phoebe.
How sweet.
Love you so much.
All right. What's next for you, Christina Catane?
Well, I have a hard launch on book 2 coming. It's Alone in the Land of the Midnight Sun on May 18th, which is also my husband's birthday. So happy birthday to you, honey.
Yay.
And because he wants to retire from his secular job and just be a pastor. And he's really counting on me starting to make some money on these books. We have a 5-year plan. Anyway, so I have some stuff to do to prepare for that. I have a bunch of promo stacking that I've done for book 1. So I've started the promo stacking on the Monday of that week, and the release of book 2 is on the Wednesday of that week. And I have newsletter promos every day that week for book 1. So book 1's going to be marked down to 99 cents, and then book 2 is going to be regular price. So we're going to see. It's something that was suggested to me by somebody who's done this a lot. So we're going to see how that works, and then we'll come back and talk about it afterwards and see how it worked.
Yeah, I really would like to spend a little bit of time with that so that people can know what to be looking forward to. Jen, were you going to hit the chat there? We got a couple of what's next in the chats, I think. Yeah.
Piper
Thanks, Jen.
says, next, straighten out my newsletter platform debacle and get more words written. Oh, we need to hear more about that.
Yeah, she joined a promotion that worked super well for her and got her like 5,000 people to sign up, but then that means she's got to pay. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
yeah.
She only wants to keep the people who are going to open. And so she's working through how do I make sure that happens? So that's kind of what's going on there. But I mean, yay for all the new subscribers.
Right.
But now she's just got to learn how to manage them.
Right. Joan says, next, just to continue working on my book release plan. That's awesome. And there's lots of, Shell says, hi, Phoebe. Piper says, hi, Phoebe. Joan says, aw, hi, Phoebe.
So sweet.
Oh,
all right. Well, a chock full of info episode for you all. And hopefully we can be back next week with another. But until next time, that concludes this Christian Indie Writers podcast. Until next time, may your pen be prolific, your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye for now.
Bye now.